This is the second day of this January 2026 Rohatsu 7-day Sesshin. Yesterday we covered some background material about the Korean Zen master Kusan Sunim. And today we'll turn to the main text of the book, The Way of Korean Zen, which consists of a selection of his teachings translated into English by Martine Batchelor. The heading for this main section of the book is Essential Teaching of the Stone Lion. And in a footnote, it says that in Korea, a stone lion is still found nowadays by the roadside at the entrance of most towns and cities. And that Kusan used the name Stone Lion as a pen name for his works of calligraphy. In Buddhist art and iconography, the lion is a symbol of strength and fearlessness and also wisdom. You can sometimes see them guarding temples, which signifies guarding the Dharma, but also guarding one's attention. The Bodhisattva of wisdom, Manjushri, is often depicted seated on top of a lion. So this imagery speaks to the determination and commitment involved in doing this practice, especially in these early days of Sesshin, when the mind hasn't yet fully settled. And on top of that, we have to contend with sleepiness. This is an unavoidable part of the process for most people. And it will change simply by continuing to return to your practice through all conditions, pleasant and unpleasant, and not falling into the trap of reactivity, where you pile on layer upon layer of thoughts and feelings. Perhaps wallowing in self-pity or anger. And this does require us to tap into our inner strength and courage. We all have it. We have to tap into it. No one does this practice. No one does a 7-day Sesshin without having these qualities. As a preface to his teachings, there's also a verse about the stone lion, and it's written by Kusan. And here it goes. At the crossroad is a stone lion. Without saying a word, he informs those who pass by of the way. He welcomes the people who come, and he bids farewell to those who are leaving. In complete silence, he is delivering an endless Dharma discourse. So what Dharma does he preach? In the middle of the night, as the sun rises, the lion emerges from his cave and roars. The blind see, and the deaf hear clearly. Do you understand this? The blind see, and the deaf hear clearly. And will sound something out of the Bible. But in the context of Zen, what he's saying is that this Dharma preached by the stone lion goes beyond our ordinary, limited perception, which is based on duality. True seeing and hearing, tasting and touching doesn't happen from a fixed position or a fixed identity. There's no one who hears or sees or senses. No eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, mind. The first chapter of Kusan's teachings is titled Instructions for Meditation, given during a retreat. And so we'll start there. I should mention, although the focus is on koan practice, much of what he says applies to any kind of concentrative practice, including counting and following the breath. And there is some repetition here and there, so I'm going to skip over some parts along the way. He begins. A human being is composed of a body and a mind. A body without a mind is just a dead corpse. A mind without a body is just pure spirit. Someone who, although endowed with both a body and a mind, yet only knows the body and not the mind, is called a sentient being. In general, a sentient being is understood as any being possessing conscious life. Birds flying in the sky, animals walking on the ground, fish swimming in the water, as well as the tiniest organisms, are all sentient beings. So, in other words, what he's saying is any being that has the capacity to feel, to sense, including in the most rudimentary way, is a sentient being. He continues, human beings are said to be superior to all other creatures. But how can human beings be considered superior if they're ignorant of the nature of their own mind? One who knows the body but not the mind is an incomplete person. However, if a human being searches for the mind and awakens to it, he will realize completeness. For at that time, he will know both the body and the mind. So the mind he's talking about here is not the small mind that dwells in thoughts of good and bad and right and wrong, this and that. He's speaking of the true mind. The mind that doesn't see any others. The mind that is undivided. Unified. He says, such an awakened person is regarded as a Buddha, a master of all things, and a noble human being. One who has transcended the commonplace. But as long as you are only concerned with the body and enslaved by the environment, this world will remain as a defiled realm. As long as you're only concerned with the body. Or you can say concerned with your identity, your self-partiality. As long as you're preoccupied with chasing after what you want and getting out of the conditions that you're in. As long as you're trying to get something that you already have. Then your experience of life is going to be unsatisfactory, lacking. Enslaved by the environment. He continues, the purpose of practicing Zen meditation is to awaken to the mind. Such practice does not involve just sitting quietly. and trying to calm and pacify the mind. Nor does it entail contemplating the breath. Instead, it involves direct inquiry. Again, it's not what you think. An example would be a question such as, "What is this?" Or, "What is this mind?" What he's saying is that our purpose is not just to sit passively and try to arrive at some tranquil or serene state. And that's the case whether you're working on a koan, a breath practice, or a shikantaza. It's not why we're here. Of course, during sashim, you may experience periods of sitting and activity that feel wonderful and sublime. And it may be tempting to try to hang out there, to sustain it. To coast along and keep that wonderful state going and not apply yourself any further. It is so tempting. Saying that as someone who did that many, many times. That's a trick of the ego. It's not why we came here. And Kusan says, practice involves direct inquiry, looking directly, which is a way of saying experiencing directly. Experiencing being a living being. Not through the intellect. And not to get to some other place outside of where you already are. But experiencing pure presence. That's what it means to be one with things as they are. Just pure presence, pure awareness. Without the complications of thoughts. skipping ahead a bit, he says, it is most important to continuously investigate the koan, or the breath, with unswerving determination. At the beginning, you might feel as though you are trying to lift a heavy bucket full of water with a weak arm. Even so, you should never relax your effort. Instead, no matter what you are doing, be solely concerned with nothing but the practice. If a clock were unreliable and kept stopping, any sensible person would either have it repaired or get rid of it. Similarly, when practicing meditation, you must exert continuous effort and not allow yourself to be lazy. Don't allow yourself to be lazy. What the Buddha taught was the middle way. Not straining, not grasping, but also not slacking off. Persistent, yet gentle effort. Also, doing what comes natural. Not denying or rejecting basic needs, but also not indulging in them. The middle way. When tired, just be tired. And when you have the next opportunity, take a nap. When thirsty, just drink some water. When your muscles are knotted up, give them a massage. Just do what needs to be done without making a fuss. Next, Kusan offers guidance on koan practice in particular. He says, in Zen meditation, the key factor is to maintain a constant sense of questioning. So, having taken up the koan, what is this? Try to always sustain the questioning. What is seeing? What is hearing? What is moving these hands and feet? And so on. Before the initial sense of questioning fades, it is important to give rise to the question again. In this way, the the process of questioning can continue uninterrupted, with each new question following the previous one. In addition, you should try to make this practice smooth and regular. But this does not mean that you should just mechanically repeat the question as though it were a mantra. It is useless to just say to yourself day and night, "What is this? What is this? What is this? What is this?" The key is to sustain the sense of questioning. The sense of questioning, not the repetition of the words. The sense of questioning, wonder, curiosity. Looking into a mystery. Once this inquiry gets underway, he says, there will be no room for boredom. If the mind remains quiet, the koan will not be forgotten, and the sense of questioning will continue unbroken. This is a really important point on how to work effectively on your practice. And not just koans. If you use your koan, say mu, or this, or who, or tending to the breath, if you use it as kind of filler, as if you're filling up headspace, or using it to cancel out thoughts, stamp them down, then you're not likely to experience intimacy with it. It's a kind of grasping, really. To sit there and say to yourself, "Moo, moo, 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 moo." You need to have some spaciousness in how you work with it. I've come to learn that a variation of this is to even, for people working on a breath practice, to think about breathing, to think inhaling, to think exhaling, rather than just observe it and experience it. Making something that's so natural and which requires no thought into a mental exercise. Asking yourself, Am I breathing correctly? Should my out-breath be longer? We're not trying to manufacture breathing in a certain way, nor questioning in a certain way. It's all fluid. We work on our practice within the context of conditions that are always changing. Master Kusan goes on. You are not the first, and you will not be the last to tread this path. So do not become discouraged if you find the practice difficult at times. All the previous ancestors of old, as well as the contemporary masters, have experienced hardships along this way. Yeah, no matter how short or long you've been practicing, it is difficult at times. Life is difficult. Practice and life are not separate. They can't be compartmentalized. We have to work within the body-mind that we're in right now, not the one from last year or a decade ago. And here in Sesshin, it's as if we're experiencing our life all condensed into 1 week. And it's intense because all of our habits of mind that we bring into our daily lives that we can usually distract ourselves from. In Sesshin, there's no place to hide. So many people have these new insights and perspectives on their habits, the things that they cling to, the narrative running through their mind. And this is so valuable. This is part of the process. You may not like what you see, but it's so valuable to see it and call it out. And then let it go. We have to go straight through the muck of the mind. We can't bypass it. Next he says, it is not always the most virtuous or intelligent person who makes the swiftest progress. Sometimes the opposite is true. There are many cases of troublesome and ill-behaved people who, upon turning their attention inward to the practice of meditation, have suddenly experienced a breakthrough. So do not feel defeated, even before you have really begun. Yeah, in case you didn't already know, even annoying people, even assholes are Buddhas. The same goes with lazy people, angry people. No exceptions. So remember that if you find yourself feeling really tired or under the weather, scatterbrained, anxious, frustrated, still a Buddha. That's just things as they are for now. Just got to do the best you can to practice in all conditions. We can't control the conditions. We can't control our life. All we can do is give ourselves and do the best that we can with whatever arises. And everything that arises does disappear. And that is why no one can define for us what the middle way is. It's not static. No one can draw that line. The middle way itself is constantly shifting. Kusan says, an ancient master once said that with the passing of days, you will see your thoughts becoming identical with the koan, and the koan becoming identical with your thoughts. This is quite true. What does he mean by that? How can thoughts become identical to the practice? I'm reminded of something Sheng Yen once said. The Buddha way is non-opposition. Don't oppose your thoughts. Thoughts are just phenomena. So to oppose them is like opposing the weather, the snow, the cold, the clouds, the temperature. No amount of complaining about conditions or fantasizing about being somewhere else changes who you are and where you are right now. There's this line in the Mumonkan. When cold, let the cold kill you. Which means keep it simple. When cold, just be cold. In this sesshin, with it being in the middle of winter, you might be erring on the side of protecting yourself against the cold. For example, wearing socks instead of going barefoot. Seems kind of crazy to be barefoot this time of year. And there's nothing, at the same time, there's nothing inherently wrong with wearing socks. Especially if you have a foot condition. But if you've never experienced, if you've never allowed yourself even to experience walking barefoot during this cold time of year, give it a try. Making that direct contact with the floor. Removing the barrier of socks. Removing that little layer of comfort. And you might just find, as I have, that it aids in your ability to be more attentive to what you're experiencing. And if it's too distracting or too uncomfortable, you can always put them back on. I think of the line in Affirming Faith and Mind. Do not reject the sense domain. Do not reject life as it is. Kusan says, in the final analysis, the practice of Zen can be said to be both the easiest as well as the most difficult thing to do. However, do not thereby deceive yourself into thinking that it will be either very simple or extremely hard. Every morning, just resolve to be awakened before evening. Strengthen this commitment daily until it is as inexhaustible as the sands along the river Ganges. There is no one who can undertake this task for you. A student's hunger can never be satisfied by the teacher eating a meal for them. It is like competing in a marathon. The winner will only be the person who is either the fittest or the most determined. It is solely up to the individual to win the race. But what race is there to win? We can't take this too literally. We do need to do this work ourselves. We do need determination. We do need to apply steady, calm, persistent effort, just like a marathoner. But also like a turtle. In the classic Aesop's fable, The Tortoise and the Hare, the lesson is that slow and steady wins the race. Calm, stable, consistent effort, even if slow, is more effective than quick and inconsistent bursts of energy. In that fable, the turtle wins by not giving up and by focusing on their own pace. Not thinking about the finish line and not thinking about what the rabbit is doing. Just going, step by step, breath by breath, while the overconfident, ambitious rabbit is preoccupied with winning, seeing itself as superior to the turtle, caught up in making comparisons, fixated on the end point, fixated on getting there, wherever there is. The problem is, if you want to get somewhere in a hurry, then you miss out on the journey. And you don't care about the journey. You don't get to appreciate it. You miss out on what's right here. When you get ahead of yourself. You have to keep showing up moment by moment. This is what our life is right now. This is how it is. This is who we are. We'll stop here and recite the 4 vows.